This is the Silver Wolf Howl. I am Angela, and today we're chatting to Neville van Rensburg. Welcome to the new season of the Silver Wolf Howl. We are starting off this new season with a very interesting individual. His name is Neville van Rensburg. He is the former head of disaster management for the Western Cape Provincial Government, and he now occupies the disaster relief and humanitarian aid portfolio for the multiple districts council of the Lions Club in Southern Africa, as well as carrying that portfolio in District 410 West. Noel will be running the interview, and I am just a co-pilot today, which I'm enjoying because I get to listen to somebody with so much experience and so much knowledge that I can just sit and absorb it all. So I think they are ready, and let's get started.
Hi, this is Noel Pratton from Silver Wolf PI. And I am here today with Mr. Neville van Rensburg, who is the Director of District 410 West of the Lions Club. He is the Director of Disaster Relief and Humanitarian Aid. Neville, good day, and I would love to introduce you to the listeners. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I'm Neville van Rensburg. Yeah, I retired last year, June, after 44 years service in disaster rescue and normal rescue work on the road. I come from the Langkloof, and I'm not going to go now into the whole, but yeah, I'm end up in Maritzburg. And at first Piketberg, where I was working in emergency services, and then later I moved back here to Maritzburg. And then in 2010 I start enjoy the Lions Club of Maritzburg. And the reason why I joined the Lions Club was they gave me a Louis Volk, a Humanitarian Award for work I've done in Iran Bam for an earthquake, because I was part of a team from South Africa that moved over the world to do, when building collapse and earthquakes, to do some rescue work. And some of my qualifications is I'm fully qualified rescue technician, I'm a qualified fireman. I was from 79 till 2022, I was full-time in the fire service, where I also was involved with ambulance work. And then I moved over to the government, where I was looking the provincial rescue for the whole province, for the Department of Health, while looking after the disasters, and I look after rescue training and rescue development and rescue services. I was a responsible officer for that. And the Lions, like I said, this is how I got into the Lions, because I'd done a lot of humanitarian work, but it was a different humanitarian work, and that was most of the time when people was badly and very traumatic injured. And so we work with a lot of trauma, because most of our works from the rescue division was in trauma sort of things. So we see a lot of bad things on the road regarding to that. And then when I got a reward, was going on, I must become a Lion. So I became a Lion in 2010. And it helps me a lot, because it shows me the softer part of Lions, humanitarian work, and not that what I know only.
I hear that. It sounds like you've had quite an adventurous life, I must say.
Yeah, it's very adventurous, but on the other side, sometimes it was also very traumatic, very, not I will say stressful, because the older guys like myself who started in the 79s and the 80s, we have the saying, the cowards don't cry, and that, I don't think that was the best thing that we could have done. But yeah, it was very challenging, very risky, but it was also very fulfillment. So,
well, I have to say, we feel very privileged to be able to be here talking to you today, a man of your experience, very, very extensive and wide-ranging experience. So thank you very much for that. I'd love to know what inspired you to focus on disaster management and relief work in your life.
Yeah, when I was working for the government, one of the things they wanted me to study was disaster management. because we respond to a lot of floodings and things like that. I mean, I went for the government to Malawi and, to do the floodings there that time when it was so bad. And then I started studying disaster management, and I ended up with a master's degree at Free State University. And then I realized that my experience, I can give so much back to the community and so much back to my colleagues. And that's how I started with disaster management, because I was involved as a first responder, but I also see the need, and I know I can help to make a difference wherever I can help with volunteers or whatever the case can be. That's how we did start.
That resonates with me, because that is part of our company ethos as Silver Wolf, is to give back to the community and to provide a service that assists the community.
Yeah.
We do it mostly in crime and court cases and things like that. And I think where what you do comes together with what we do particularly is in major accidents and things like that. Mass casualty events, quite often those come out in a courtroom, because things have to be decided and compensation has to be paid and things like that. So quite often the things that you have covered are things that we investigate later. If I may ask, the security situation on scenes like that in South Africa, what have you found that is like? I mean, I know it can be pretty dangerous for you guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, we have a system that we run, all emergency services, fire, EMS, doesn't matter which service you are, even SAPS. If we arrive on the scene, I mean, normally with us, SAPS is most of the time, because if it's an accident or whatever the case can be, it's like so SAPS will be in charge. And we have a system between all of us, is a command system, how we operate on the scene. And like I say, the most important thing on any accident scenes, major incidents, mass casualties, doesn't matter, is your scene safety, and I mean, that is very crucial. And you must remember, if somebody is trapped in a vehicle, we have to basically sometimes have to take the vehicle apart to get the patient out, because still, if the patient is still alive, and that you're going to survive the accident. So there's a lot of risk towards that also, especially at night time. Vehicles that have to pass the accident scenes. So there's a lot of people being injured on rail rescues and by people that can't drive properly on roads and kill some paramedics or injured some other firefighters. So that's a risk, but it's acceptable risk, if I can call it like that.
I hear what you're saying, and tell me about crimes on scene. I mean, guys have been coming. I mean, lately we've been hearing about paramedics that are getting held up and they're now wanting to have armed guards and things like that. That's also things that we investigate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with society. I mean, I'm the last person maybe because I'm not specialized in that, but I can say one thing. I mean, till last year, I mean, we have very bad cases where emergency people, and so that include the fire in SAPS even, were assaulted or fire services fighting a fire and then they cut the fire hoses. I mean, for what reason? We're there to serve the community. We're there to do something positive and not something bad. I mean, because emergency workers, we don't care who we serve. We serve. That's our job, the same as Lions. We serve the communities. And that is a challenge. And, sometimes when we arrive on the scene, crime already takes place. I mean, we arrive on scenes where you can't believe how people quickly, even here we're out in the rural areas, you will find a truck that overturned with food on. There's many cases where when we arrived at the patient, the truck was, you can't believe it, even 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Where do people come from? I don't know. There's no closed down, but believe me, there's always onlookers and there's always people that steal from the scene. And that's a big problem. And now normally we as emergency services, we rely a lot on SAPS to protect us because we can't protect ourselves. We focus on patients and things like that. So crime is a reality and getting My opinion, that's my personal opinion, it gets worse. That's a fact.
You think it's heading that way to getting worse?
I think so. Because if you look on, just on the news, how many trucks, I mean, you can't believe it. I mean, you know, why are people doing it? I don't know. But they're doing it.
That's a very sad thing. So we mentioned earlier that you are a director in this district of the Lions Club. That's District 14 West, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, of the district chair of 14W for disaster relief. And I'm the MDC, the multi-district chairman, also for disaster relief.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about the Lions' involvement in disaster relief.
Well, it's a very important role. I mean, Lions is normally the secondary role because your first responders will always be the first people to respond to an incident or major incident or disaster. And Lions will play a very crucial role because of what we can do secondary. Because as you yourself says one day, you know, it is we focus on emergency workers as well as the public. I mean, if you look at currently the big fires we have, you know, around here, you know, it's not only the public that needs sometimes, your emergency workers also need sometimes, you know, hygiene and lip eyes and, you know, some energy bars and things like that. So, yeah, so that is very important.
Okay. Tell me about how the Lions Club involve local communities in these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, we interlink with your disaster centers in your local community. That's very important. Some places we link in with the community leaders. You can't just go out in the community and just do what you want to do. I mean, because then you've got problems with some community leaders. We have to respect them and work with them. Mm. So, yeah, we have to do assessments before. We need to understand the community we're going to serve, what is needed. So assessment always play a big role. And the same when a disaster happens, you need to have a proper assessment in place to know what resources do you need or what logistics you need to put in place to serve the community.
Okay. Tell me about some of the biggest challenges that the Lions Club faces in doing this stuff.
Well, I will say, first of all, sometimes the recognition, sometimes the safety of some of them. All depends where you come from, where you live, which area. But sometimes you can't just go in, even you want to go and help people, you need some protection. Some places there is SAPs that will go with you. I mean, it's not, you need to do it very professional, otherwise you can get where people sort of basically take everything from you. I mean, it happens. So that's very important. So that's a challenge, and the biggest challenge is that the community understand what Lions is for and understand what's the real purpose of the Lions. That's your biggest challenge, that people understand that we can do a lot for the community and that we need support from the community to be able to support people that get into trouble and that need support, and that's very important.
Okay. And in terms of the law and doing things according to the law and things like that, I mean, for example, food safety. For when it comes to supplying food to firefighters or to first responders, things like that. Speak to that a little bit for us. I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, your biggest thing is if you work through. That's why assessment is important. That is why you need to understand to speak to the people that is responsible to do the relief for the community. And if you do that, you have to know exactly what do they need. If they just need products like canned fish or whatever the product is, then you're in a safe way. But we must also understand to make food, we must be careful what food we make, because there's also a thing like your health regulations also that's important. You can't. I mean, we know what happened at a lot of places now with sweets of food at some of the other sort of, how can I put it, places where people died because of things that was in chips and things like that. Now, Alliance is not, I mean, have that problem, but still we must be cautious. It becomes a cooked food. And you must remember, I was myself for many years a first responder. What people sometimes want to do good. But what they do is, they don't realize that even we have the same uniform on, we are different sometimes religions.
Yes.
What I will eat is not to say that my colleague next to me will eat. And to bring me a sandwich, and I don't want to, they say, people that always give, we respect it and we want it, but that's sometimes a challenge. Then sometimes you end up with a lot of sandwiches, but you can't eat it.
Yeah.
Because most of the people with you won't eat it. And sometimes myself, if I get some sandwiches, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who made it.
Yes.
And like I say, we need the community support. But to give me an energy bar and give me an energy drink and give me some, things like that, that's fine. I mean, I can put it in my pocket and I can live with that. And anybody can. So that's a very crucial point. Because most of the people sometimes say where it comes from, you see. And that is specifically cooked food.
Yes.
But if you have where the disaster management center, for example, they have a kitchen where they prepare food and you can go take, and give stuff to them that they can send it out to other people. But like I say, that is an important point.
Thank you for that. Tell us a little bit about the Lions Club's goals for improving disaster relief efforts going forward.
Well, I can only speak for W now at this stage. So we do it on the other side on E also from in Joburg side and other provinces, where, we start, because it's one of our pillars of Lions International. And one of the pillars is disaster relief and humanitarian aid. So we combine the two. In W, we have now a new system where we're running that we got 11 zones. And we got, from that 11 zones, that zones each one, we got a person that look after a zone. Some look after 3 zones, some after 2 zones. And we as a group work together, we train together, and we see that we can stay in line with the newest legislation of disaster management, and that we stay in line with what the right requirements is. And that is one big positive point for us as Lions, because we don't just do our own thing. We stay in line with what is required for any NGO, and that is very important. And we also is part of the bigger picture, like your provincial disaster center. We are involved with the advisory forum as well as your municipalities. So that helps a lot.
Okay. There must be a lot of challenges in that. Problems that the organisation faces in trying to get this right. Perhaps you'd like to tell us something about those.
No, the biggest challenge, I will say, is that everybody understands what we do, who are we, and what we stand for, and what our visions and our missions is. That's the most important thing that we must understand so long, and that is a lot of PR work has to be done. And like I say, we do very good work, and if people know what we do, then we will be very successful.
How do Lions Clubs coordinate with other organizations, government agencies, other businesses and things like that, especially in a crisis?
Well, we see, that's where importance comes in. If you build relationships before, when it happens, you have the relationships already. So you can tap into a lot of, all depends what the need is. And what the need is, you can tap into that. And that is why other organizations in NGOs is important. Sometimes you can work with the NGO that are currently busy with the area, and you can just assist them in what they need. So that is, things like that will be worked here.
Okay. So it's almost a case of it's not what you know, it's who you know.
That's correct. Together we can serve it so much stronger,
I agree. What really interests me of all of this is anybody that's involved in disaster relief, humanitarian aid and things like that, they have to have certain things on their heart. So tell us what drives you, what goes on inside there.
Well, I'm going to be honest when I say that. Remember, when I was in the service, I always said to my colleagues, I always say we are a different species of people. And we understand each other. If my neighbor is a paramedic, if he came to me and he discussed something, I understand what he say. But maybe our families don't understand what we say. That's a fact. And the thing is, you must have a passion to serve people. You must have a passion, doesn't matter who it is. If you don't have a passion or in a desire, then then you can't serve. Your heart must be pure. Because and the most important thing is, people don't need to know what you've done. I've been out how many calls for my lifetime. My wife didn't know not even 1% of what I was doing. And they will never know, because that was one thing to protect them, but also I'm not there. The government paid me a salary. Lions I joined because I want to serve the Lions, and we know in Lions we say kindness matters, and that's what it's all about. It's not about who's with me, it's about what I can feel. When I come home and I sit on my own, I can feel, I won't say satisfied, but I know I could do something for somebody else who didn't have what I have, or the privilege that I have at that stage. California fires is for me so good example how people lost everything. Now everything that people will receive is something, that others have who was in that situation. And there's one thing we must understand. It's not only poor people that get struck by disasters. These people can also be. It's not to say everything is always, Yeah. So disasters don't ask. Lions don't ask who you are, what you are. Lions ask only, what can I do to help you? And that's why we're there. I normally say there's organizations that can throw millions of rand at one incident. We are 24/7 in the community. That's why Lions are good. And that's why I love Lions, and that's why I'm a Lion. Because Lions sort of bring me a sort of balance back into my life from all the trauma I experienced, all the bad things I saw on the road. And when I start doing Humanitarian work in Lions, I start to realize there's something more pure, there is something softer in life. It's only what I see. It brings sort of a balance back in my life. So, and that's why I'm still a Lion, So why I still stay a Lion is because of that. And inside myself, I get that sort of satisfaction. It's not only the bad things of the people I couldn't save because they've already been maybe, dead when we arrived there. But it also brings sort of a more relaxed, if I can call it like that I could do for something positive. And they're still there to enjoy what I've done with them, instead of the person who I couldn't save. And, so it helps me to move that feelings a little bit around. So I feel today very down, but then with the Lions or project, whatever we do, you have that little bit, oh, look what we could done. So it's all about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about.
Yeah. It's basically living the dream that you have in your heart.
Yeah. If you don't have a passion to serve the communities, you mustn't serve. No. Otherwise, you're going to struggle yourself.
Because I know, especially you guys that have been in a service career, like being a paramedic, being in rescue and things like that. If you're not all in, don't do it.
Yeah, no. You must have a passion for it, and you want to have to do it because that is what you want to follow. Yeah. And you must understand what any job in life, there come some, things that is not always nice, and that you have to live with it. That's life.
So some of our listeners may be looking into a career in disaster management or into a career as a paramedic or something like that. What would you say to them?
Well, I will say both. I will encourage them to do that, because I've done this for 44 years. And that's all I know, but it was well to know it. And paramedics, these days, when I started in the service in 79, that was, if you look what they do today, paramedics, they study 4 years at the Seafood University, they study at the College of Emergency Care. So it's not just a guy that done a first aid course or whatever. They are professional. They use a lot of drugs, and they're very professional these days. They've got degrees. There's not anymore. In the old days when I started to go to a little first aid box, that days is gone. It's professional. Even the firefighters become very professional these days. And in disaster management, when I started service, was still the old civil defense. And since 1994, the big floods in Cape Town, that's when the white paper and the green papers and all these started for disaster management, because after the bad flooding in 1994 in Cape Town. And that's why disaster has been born. But if you look at disaster management today, there's people that study master's degrees, and so it's not anymore like the first responder is not run a disaster. No. It changed totally. So that's one big advantage. And it's a good career, both of them. And even fire service is a good career. So I will definitely encourage younger people to do that.
Okay. But here's one question that really flies right alongside what we do. And that is, I always ask this, right? If a person wants to do this just for the salary, what would your advice be there?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people sometimes that do things for salary. They don't like what they do, but they do it because of the money. I mean, that we can't stop. I mean, that is one of that things. But what I learned in life is, if you do it because you have a passion and you live for that, you got so much more self-esteem. As what I just do a thing. Why would I want to do a thing I don't like? Yeah. For money is not everything in the world. If you want to serve people, you must be willing to serve people. And I'd rather serve people instead just money is, we must have money, we must live. I agree 100%. I work also to have some money to survive my family and myself, to have food on the table, but it must come from the heart. That's my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. Tell me, what are some of the key values or principles that guide the Lions Club's approach to disaster relief and yours personally?
Key principles to me is always, like I say, if I approach them, I must understand what they stand for. And one of the key principles is I must know what they can offer, what they can do. That's the only way I see a principle if you want to do that. And the other principle is also, we must also understand ourselves. So we need also to understand why are we doing what we're doing. What's the purpose? We need to understand that if something happens, there must be a plan. That there's some steps you have to follow. Because if you want to work with the rest of the world or South Africa, you need to understand it. And we have to follow the processes. Something happened in your little town, the principles must be, the clubs must know. You can start from number 1 till number whatever, but there must be a process in place. And that principles, and we need to have principles of, that we know and take our disaster relief, seriously. And so that if we work with other organizations, then they can see we got the principles of serving, and that we got the understanding of what we want to serve.
Okay. It sounds to me like there has to be an enormous amount of cooperation and communication between services and organizations.
That's very, very true. There was underground fires. I'm not going to go into the years in that. That they was investigate why did so many, some of the Mississippi people as well, passengers died. And the one thing what the main communications thing was showing was there was no proper communication. And that's what thing went wrong. There was a question, at some places, why did certain people die and certain don't die? And the whole investigation was coming down to one thing, communications. So that is for me important. If you don't communicate before things happen, what we call the preparedness phase. If you as an organization, doesn't matter who you are, if you don't prepare, and part of your preparedness must be to link with these other people, and so that you know how they're going to operate, and they know how you can operate, and how you as a group can operate together. If you don't do that, and that's why communication is number one. That is where I bring in, you have to have that interaction with that organizations, and that's part of your communication process.
And of course, a big part of that is excellence in top leadership.
Yes, exactly. Because remember, leadership is about followers.
Yeah.
You see, and it's not a matter of micromanagement of leadership. And that's where a lot of problems sometimes happen, because of micromanagement. I always say, part of that must be use people's strengths, forget their weaknesses. You can later work on weaknesses. But there's so many with strengths. And that is where that, one organization has a certain strength, the other one don't have that certain, but focus on each one's strengths, and you will be serving the community much more better.
Yeah. I've seen in certain circumstances where the top leader doesn't even necessarily have to be a firefighter or a rescue person, as long as they're a top manager.
To coordinate, you must manage.
Yeah.
You don't need to be everything in life. You can't. You can't be jack of all trades. And the thing is, leadership is about leading. And if you do proper leadership, you must give them a responsibility, and you must give them accountability as a leader. If you don't give that to them, then you micromanage, and then there's a problem.
I understand. But I'm very interested in how the Lions Club does things in terms of coordinating, especially sort of on a provincial level, or should I say a wider level than just locally, in terms of things like supply, in terms of things like sponsorships and things like that, in order to both fund and run disaster management. Can you comment on that?
You see, if I go to the provincial side, is more of as in all NGOs that are with the provincial disaster management they will be part of the bigger picture. But remember, that is where it comes in. When something big happens, every organization still need to be able to can support the provincial. So it's not that the provincial will give you every time all the food or all the money. And that's what a lot of people don't understand sometimes. It's not to say they can't. They can. They can declare a disaster. They can, give a lot of things to NGOs to do and things like that. But it's important also to realize that our things need to be also in place. So I can't down today want to serve people, but now I phone everybody and say, what now, and my preparedness is not in place. So that is where I will bring it in. And then, like we currently in W, we are into X, and I know at the other side, Marvin here, and also start doing where we interact with the provincial disaster. So they know us, we explain to them what we ask, and that is again with communication, and that is how they learn about you. You need to make them know who you are, and that is how they will support you.
So it's all about relationships.
Yes, all about relationships.
I like that.
Yeah, always come back to that.
I absolutely like that. We've been thinking and preparing for this about preparedness and response, and that's just what you've just addressed now. In parting, what would you say is the most important thing that perhaps all organizations need to look towards in order to prepare for disasters?
All members must understand what preparedness is about. All members must understand how they fit into the bigger picture of disaster management in South Africa. All members need to understand if something happens, how their club can activate their systems. And all clubs must understand what logistics do they have in place when they have to respond to an incident. And most important, clubs must realize they are not first responders. They are not the guy that stands at the end of the house. They are not the guy that uses the jaws of life. They are not a paramedic who saves lives. So that is very important, I will say, because it's amazing how many people who contact me in the past from Lions and say, but they want to get involved, but they can't because they were not a firefighter, they were not a paramedic, or they were not a rescuer, or whatever the case is. You don't need to do that, because by just doing secondary response, take blankets, foods, just examples, that is where we come in, and that's very important. So we play a crucial role, but just at the other side of response. But we need to understand what is preparedness first, and we need to understand how do we respond. And the biggest thing that I think is whether the response phase, before we can respond, we must understand already who is the community, what is the community about, and to understand that we have a proper assessment, what is the need. We can't just respond and we pitch up there now we have to work through the right people, that is your disaster centers or whatever the case can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because basically everybody needs to learn. I have a term I say that you need to stay in your own lane.
Yeah, that's very important. You see, and where you have to hook up and link with others, you link up and hook with them. I mean, but that's very important.
Yeah, but there are no heroes here, basically.
It's not about heroes, and it's not about yourself. It's about what we can do for somebody that is in need, who maybe have nothing left, and that is where we come in.
Yeah. And am I right in saying that just as the people that are being affected by a disaster are in need, so are the first responders in need? They're in need of our support.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you will see where they will send something out that they need, IGs, or they need, chocolates, or they need energy bars, whatever they want to need, and the community can come and drop it at a certain place. So that's where we can play a big role. But for us to run to the scene, that means nothing, believe me. Because you as a first responder, and I know because of experience, you want to entertain people that, you focus on the job that you need to do. So we need to focus from the humanitarian side on what we need to do. So if we have to take something to a certain place or a drop-off place, Lions clubs who've got clubhouses can become very crucial in their community. The more they expose the clubhouse to the community, that's as a drop-off point, Tomorrow, everybody, even your message service will know, okay, something happens, we can drop it down there. That's very important. That's part of your preparedness for response.
Yeah. What is your message to the South African public?
Well, I will say, we need to, support organizations like the Lions. All other organizations, there's a lot of them. So all the NGOs that try to do what we do, I will say to them, don't be sometimes, how can I put it, it's critical, but people that need, some stuff. They must rather, open their hearts to people like this, because there's a lot of good people also in the world. And in South Africa, we want to really to make a difference. And they need to support us, because if they don't, they must always know, in Alliance, what we get from the community can go back to a community. So what I received today, I could give to somebody else in that community that's what been affected. So that is my message to them, to be a little bit open-hearted and understand, So they don't know what Alliance is about, speak to Alliance Club and ask them, what is Alliance about, because we've got 8 pillars we serve, And so we not only do disaster, yourself, we do a lot of other pillars, also sight and children, cancer and all these stuff, So, that is my message to them, that they understand that we are not there to beg, we are there to serve a community in need.
Mr. Neville van Rensburg, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you on behalf of our listeners and on behalf of our company for sharing your wisdom with us today and your experience. Frankly, I can't think of anybody that's more experienced than you in this field. And it's a privilege to be here today. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. And like I said, there's a lot of people that are better than me. But thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity.